Welcome to Life in Sirens, Behind and on the Scene, a podcast by first responders. We're your hosts, Sophie,
Jamie,
and Aubrey.
The content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of any medical institutions, emergency medical services, or healthcare organizations. Patient privacy is a top priority, and all discussions involving real-world emergency situations are de-identified and altered to ensure confidentiality. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional or your local EMS protocols before making any decisions regarding patient care or medical practices. Listener discretion is advised, as some topics may include discussions of real-world emergency situations. There are moments in this job when we show up for someone on the worst day of their life. But what if the way we show up changes everything? Not just clinically, not just emotionally, but culturally. Today's episode is about a shift happening in emergency services. A shift toward understanding trauma, not as an isolated incident, but as something that shapes behavior, communication, trust, and outcomes. Because one fire department in the United States just made history, and what they did may quietly influence the future of EMS. Welcome back to the Life in Sirens podcast, where we talk about the reality of life in EMS, the clinical, the cultural, and everything in between.
And today's episode is a special collaboration with EMS1, one of the leading voices in EMS education and news.
We're talking about something big, something progressive, something that honestly many EMS agencies have talked about for years, but very few have truly operationalized. We're talking about trauma-informed care at the agency level. Recently, the San Antonio Fire Department became the first fire department in the nation to be officially certified as a trauma-informed care agency. This wasn't a symbolic designation. It followed an extensive certification process lasting more than a year, where leadership implemented new policies focusing on how personnel interact with the public and with each other.
Which is huge, because trauma-informed care is often discussed at the patient level, but this is organizational.
Exactly. This certification was evaluated by the Ecumenical Center, an organization authorized to certify agencies on trauma-informed practices. They look at safety, training, collaboration, trust, and even culture.
And that's what makes this story so powerful. This isn't about adding a CE class, it's about changing how an entire department understands trauma in the community and within their own workforce.
So let's talk basics. What does trauma-informed care actually mean in EMS?
Yeah, so let's get to the actual bread and butter of what we're going to talk about. So,
am I the only person that thought that the certification was about trauma patients?
Yeah,
physical trauma?
That would make sense for San Antonio because that's kind of their thing.
Kind of with blood and everything? Yeah. Okay.
They'd be doing some progressive stuff
Yes,
in
they
San
do.
Antonio.
But
we're
turns out, tis not.
Tis not. At its core, it just means recognizing that many behaviors that we see in our patients, they're survival responses. Anger, withdrawal, noncompliance, distrust. These aren't always personality traits. Sometimes they are. But sometimes they are trauma adaptations.
And when we understand that, our approach changes. Instead of asking, why is this patient being difficult? We start asking, what might have happened to this patient?
This philosophy, it also applies internally. Providers carry that cumulative trauma, so call after call, year after year, moral injury, sleep deprivation, violence exposure. Trauma-informed agencies, they acknowledge that.
So why does this matter in EMS? Let's be honest, EMS culture historically has been tough.
Sometimes unnecessarily tough.
Yes, we've all been through that, and we pride ourselves on resilience, but sometimes that resilience, it just becomes emotional suppression. We use resilience a lot of the time as like a buzzword. We're not using the word for what it really means, I suppose. Trauma-informed systems aim to create that psychological safety without lowering any performance standards, because I think sometimes we hear psychological safety and people think we're going soft, but that is not what this is about. It's about balance. So picture this. You respond to a domestic disturbance. A patient is yelling, they refuse vitals, they accuse you of trying to hurt them. The traditional mindset would be like, patient was uncooperative. End of story, right? The trauma-informed mindset is the patient may have a history of abuse or systemic distrust or mistrust. That shift will affect tone, body language, scene position, clinical decision-making, all of it.
It can literally change outcomes.
And sometimes prevent escalation. But here's the part that hits closest to home. Trauma-informed care isn't just about patients. It's about us. The San Antonio certification process included reviewing organizational culture and staff feedback, recognizing that supportive environments improve both provider well-being and community care.
Which makes sense because burned out providers struggle with empathy.
Compassion fatigue isn't a personality flaw, it's an occupational hazard.
And on that note, let's talk about the leadership side of things. So, because trauma-informed systems, they require policy change, let's dive into those and what they could look like. Peer support integration, I think, is really important. De-escalation training, we all miss that for some reason.
Absolutely.
Why do we never get that? I don't know.
We are like the last line of defense a lot of times for agitated, elevated patients.
Yeah.
But we have zero de-escalation training in school.
I regretfully have never had a course or class or online training even of how to actually do this. We just kind of have to figure it out.
Right? You kind of trial and error, see what works, see what doesn't. And I think a lot of us get really good at it. But everybody knows which providers have not gotten good at it, and it's terrifying when you are working with them.
It's stressful.
And you're on a scene
like,
with
oh
them.
God.
Because you're like, oh gosh, they're going to make it so much worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of things that our leadership can do to implement, systems where we're getting that training, where psychological safety reporting systems exist, where leadership communication training is happening, right, for not just administrators and supervisors, but also for field crews. Wellness-focused scheduling models. So if a certain model isn't working for your system, for the, number of calls people are getting, for how many trucks you have, do your best to work on that, right? And then, of course, we've all either been a part of these or heard of them happening, is incident support or incident debriefings after critical things happen. But also knowing that sometimes it doesn't have to be some crazy incident to require some support.
For sure. And I think that we all talk about EMS culture a lot, but kind of think that if everybody just wants to have a good culture, it will just come.
Yeah.
But I think what this outlines is that this is culture engineering.
Yeah.
You have to work at it.
And I think that's really important to say and highlight, because often the kickback is, well, a culture starts on the in the field level, it starts on the truck, but we do still need policy and structure to make that happen.
For sure.
And a lot of these things that you just mentioned, they can even start in school. They can start, you can lay that foundation in school. And I mean, like we just said, none of us had a class on de-escalation, not in EMT school, not in paramedic school.
Which is wild.
And not in continuing education. So yeah, there's lots of things that can start even at that ground level before you even hit the field. And honestly, all of that is just a strategy for recruitment in EMS, which I don't know if you guys heard, but apparently there's recruitment issues at EMS.
Just a little one.
Just a little bit.
And retention.
And along that note, let's talk about the future of EMS. Here's my prediction. Within 10 years, trauma-informed certification may become a benchmark, like clinical accreditation, response standards, and quality metrics. Because agencies that prioritize provider wellness will retain better clinicians.
End of story.
Period.
Full stop.
Yep.
Agencies that prioritize trauma-informed patient care will improve public trust.
And when public trust increases, so does funding.
Yes.
Don't fight me on that one.
100%. If people see you as valuable and they trust you and they are happy when you show up to their door to help their loved one,
it's way more valuable to them.
Yes, they're far more likely to vote for a tax increase or whatever it is to be able to fund their first responders.
Absolutely.
Public trust is a big It's a big selling point.
Our entire infrastructure relies on public trust, and I don't mean just like funding. Obviously that's a big part of it. We couldn't do what we do without money, but also just like showing up to calls. And I know we have seen a big wave in recent years on how that has affected police departments and law
Yeah.
enforcement, and that is a very fragile thing that's already been proven, and we are reliant on that to be able to do what we do and help the people that we help.
Absolutely, because half the time that we show up, there's bystanders, there's family, there's all these things. And
There's
if
cameras.
Yes, and if they already
Always
don't trust
cameras.
you, one, getting the information you need is going to be a lot harder
Yeah.
Mhm.
if they already have a distrust. But also, like, sometimes you need help. Sometimes,
Yeah, you need information.
yeah, and it
You
can
need
create like a really,
compliance.
yes, and it can create like a really dangerous situation too, because if they're already elevated because they don't trust you, you know, pushing that further to physical violence is actually not a huge step.
Absolutely.
You know,
And
so
at,
it's a big deal.
at the basis of what we're doing is we're helping people, but we are reliant on people calling us
Mhm.
to come help
Yeah.
them. And if you are in a society that you are not trustworthy, you will not get called.
You will not.
And there's no need to make yourself a public enemy just for the sake of your own pride, right?
Yeah,
like we can just
absolutely.
do better, guys.
For sure. There's always room for improvement.
Yeah,
So let's do a quick reflection exercise for our listeners.
let's do it.
So, number one, let's ask yourself, how does your agency respond to provider trauma?
Emotional trauma.
Yes.
Emotional damage.
And like really think about it, because truly I think I can speak for all three of us, you don't really realize how incredible EMS can be sometimes until you kind of step out of your comfort zone, and we obviously get to talk to a lot of people from all over the country and all over the world because of the podcast, and we can learn things from every agency there is, whether it's things that are terrible we need to improve or amazing things. No agency is perfect. So how does your agency respond to provider trauma?
Yeah.
Don't just stop at we have a peer support program,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Like, what are we really doing? There's a service that is closer, like in our region, that if there is a tough call, big call, whatever, they do a critical incident stress debrief on shift, but it's not optional. It is mandatory. You have to go to it.
Or like on shift.
Yes.
Mhm.
On shift, and it is mandatory. And initially when I heard that, I was like,
I think it's because of our experience.
yes. I was like, I don't love that. But if that was just an expectation that if you had a hard call, you go to a critical incident debriefing,
That's the standard.
and that is it. If there is a call that really affects you, that could be very helpful. But also it just gets you in the room with your peers to be able to have a conversation about things. It opens up the room for so many other things. And so my initial resistance, like the mandatory aspect, actually that probably helps a lot of providers that will be like, nah, I'm good. But they probably do need
Yeah.
to like have a discussion to some degree. So I thought that was cool.
I think it's important, and it sucks, but it's important to know that even if you haven't struggled yet in this career, because there will be a time.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a time where I was like, oh, I just don't think this stuff affects me. Like, I'm just fine all the time. And then it really did. But, like, seeing other people talk about their struggle, even if you were like me, or like I was, and think, I'm never going to have an issue. Looking back, you're able to be like, okay, well, people were totally upfront and able
sure.
to talk about any struggle they had. I am not the only one.
For sure.
I think that if you have to go to an incident debrief, because I've been to ones where I don't want to go, I mean, just understand that, like, it's giving you some perspective,
Mhm.
right? That you may not have gotten before, and you're going to learn something if you aren't closed off.
For sure. And I think ask yourself, like, does your agency make taking care of your psychological health a requirement?
Yeah.
Like, is
It
that
should
how
be.
seriously they take it? You know, a lot of agencies have like physical health standards, and you go get screenings and you have to do physicals and like all these things. Do they have a psychological health standard? Like, do they expect you to maintain your own psychological health with obviously giving you resources? And I think if they do that, and that is obviously a value that your service has, you're in a really good place.
Yeah. And it's okay not to settle.
So our next question to ask yourself is, do leadership interactions feel psychologically safe?
Generally. sometimes
Yeah.
there's runs.
For sure.
There's emotionally stunted
Everybody-
people in this field.
Yes, and everybody has bad days, and so
Yeah.
just because you had a bad interaction
Right.
doesn't mean you always have a bad interaction. But do you have certain leadership that you feel psychologically safe with, and certain ones that you do not? Like, look
Yeah.
at the differences in those two leaders and that style.
Yeah, what do they do differently?
Mm-hmm. So, are difficult patients labeled or tried to be understood?
I think this is such a big one because this is where a lot of our culture suffers, because we always are like, oh, well, it's just like dark humor, it's how we handle it. But our approach and our mentality, it is everything when it comes to like how happy we are in the
Mhm.
workplace. And I think this is a really big one for regulars, when we have the quote unquote regular. If we approach a regular like we would any other patient, there's a good chance you're going to be less burnout with the
Mhm.
repeated regular calls. In my opinion, that
For
is my
sure.
experience.
Yeah.
And with like difficult patients that are non-compliant or really elevated or whatever it is, you have to be like emotionally intelligent enough and aware enough of your like situation.
Yeah, this is not about you.
Yes, to recognize that like, hey, this person is super, super elevated, and sometimes there's a time where you need to continue kind of chipping away at that to try to get them to let you help them.
Yeah.
If they clearly have like a large injury, or there's just some juju vibes that you're like, they need help. And there's a time to take their words for what they said and walk away.
Yeah.
But like, you have to be able to look at those situations and understand like, not everybody's just difficult. Sometimes
Right.
people are just going through something, and you got to meet them where they are.
And just because somebody told you someone is difficult does not mean they're difficult.
Yeah, that's tough too. Like that provider
Mhm.
bias where
Yeah.
someone's like, oh, I've dealt with them before, they're terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or PD meets you at your truck and is like, we've
This
been fighting
person,
with
yeah.
them, and yeah.
And that, I mean, that's a great example too of like, just because someone else says something, you don't have to automatically assume that's the case, because that does happen all the time.
Mhm.
PD's like, well, this person is just like out of control, they're uncooperative, we don't know, we can't talk to them, and then they're just so pleasant with you.
Yes, we've had this interaction where they just hate the police.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I am sorry that you guys had to deal with that, but they're sweet baby angels
They're
to
being
us.
so nice.
Yeah, and
We will take them.
we're like, come on, little bean.
Or the this is a funny one, I think, just fun to mention, the nursing home patient
Mhm.
who's like so mad at the staff there, and you're like, do you want to do an escape? And they're like, yeah, let's get out of here.
Yes.
And then they're like so sweet with you.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
Aubrey does
Oh,
that
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, it's just
Hey,
how you
man.
approach it,
You wanna
right?
get out of here?
Yeah, we'll bust you out of
She'd be
here.
like, "Oh, you want to go with me? We'll just go do something fun."
Yeah,
And they're just
It
like,
will be the
"Absolutely."
ER,
it
but
will be fun for them.
I have friends there, and you can too.
Yeah.
You can too. So our last like self-reflection is, what policies that you have at your agency would you change tomorrow? And that's a great place to start. Is there a policy that you have right now that you're like, if I had the opportunity, I would change that tomorrow?
Yeah, and some things are a lot easier to change than we think.
Mm-hmm.
Some things are near impossible.
Guys,
You just gotta figure it out.
my favorite thing, the rules are made up.
They are made up.
They're all made up.
They're all made up.
My
Somebody,
therapist says that even.
yes, somebody just
It's gotta be true.
It's gotta be
It's gotta
true.
be. Someone just one day decided that this was the rule. Well, guess what? Now somebody else can decide that there's a new rule.
Yeah.
And so why not let that person be you?
And sometimes
Wow.
in EMS agencies, they write the rules on day one, and then they stay like that since 1972, and nobody even looks at them.
Yeah, and
so,
you're like, hey, bro, do you like this rule?
and they're like,
everybody
oh,
in
we
the
didn't even
room's
know that
like,
existed.
Nah.
That's
we
weird.
That
do
was written
not.
during the Prohibition era, actually.
Yeah.
We're not a huge fan. I'm like, can we just change it? And they're like, that's crazy thought. I think probably yes.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
is.
Right?
It is.
The rules are made up, homies.
Yeah.
You know what? As a matter of fact, if you guys have a good policy change that you can like think of that you want to change, that you could if you would tomorrow, message us, because I want to know what those are. I want to get some
Yes.
ideas.
I do too,
So-
actually.
Go to our website and shoot us a message.
Absolutely.
And if you have like an amazing agency who's doing really cool things, you can also submit your agency
Correct.
on our website.
Oh yeah, Agency of the
Mhm.
Month.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Guys,
Okay.
I think my favorite example of, and this is a little bit off topic, but my favorite example of the rules are made up is that for our entire EMS careers, ambulances have been stocked with these like colorful bins that are hard to get anything into and hard to get anything
That
out
you
of.
find at Home Depot.
Yes, and they just look like trash.
They're indestructible. Like you could run them over your. I think that's where it started. They were like,
Maybe, yeah.
these. We will never have to replace these.
And I'm like, but they live in cabinets.
The guys are like, I got this in my shop.
Yeah,
It'll
they
work.
are literally like
hold
screw.
my nuts
they're
and
like,
bolts.
they're for holding nuts and bolts.
Mhm.
And so that's just what's been in there, and I just thought that's what had to be in there. It was like a state reg or something.
Do you know how many trips in that we made to TJ Maxx.
Right.
That's where it all
Until
started.
these
That is
little-
where it all
yes,
started.
it is. Until these little rascals were like, what if we got acrylic bins that you can see through?
Why not, guys? And if you haven't seen,
And it
go to
changed our
Hippie
world.
Paramedics TikTok.
Yeah.
You can see lots of videos of the ambulance with the clear bins. It
It's very
tickles my
satisfying.
brain.
Yes. And that is just like the tiniest way. It changed our experience on the truck so much.
That matters.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but it's
Everything
a tiny little
matters like
way,
that.
an example of like the rules are made up.
Yes.
Like it just was that way because it was that way, not because it had to be.
And we
Mhm.
talk about this a lot on the show. Like every agency, every town, every region, every single call, every single truck, it has you guys have your own experience, and they're sometimes not comparable to other places. So make up your own rules. I mean, as far as like your experience goes, like
for sure.
you can change whatever you want to change. Just
For
because
sure.
this has been what EMS does around the country does not mean it's going to work for you, and that is okay.
Absolutely. Obviously follow clinical standard. But if
Yeah.
you want to switch up some
But
things,
all the other stuff,
switch them up.
yeah.
If you want to get new bins, get new bins.
Yeah, do it. Anyway.
Anywho, speaking of change, it doesn't necessarily start with certification, right? It starts with conversations, just like this one, and just like EMS1 put out in the article that we will also put in the show notes if you would like to read it. EMS has always been about showing up, but the next evolution of this profession may be about how we show up. Trauma-informed care reminds us that clinical excellence and human understanding are not competing priorities. They are the same mission.
I want to say thank you to EMS1 for collaborating with us on this episode.
If you want to read more about this story, we'll link the article in our show notes.
And if this episode resonated with you, share it with your crew, because culture change in EMS happens shift by shift. If this episode brought you value, take a moment to rate and review the show. It helps more providers find us. Follow Life in Sirens, join our mailing list for exclusive content, and visit lifeinsirenspodcast.com for resources and downloadables built for the modern provider. And if this conversation made you think, send it to your partner, your preceptee, or someone on your crew, because better providers build better systems.